Welcome everyone. This is MTech's Accelerate. My name is Nikolai and I have Jim Johnston with me. How are you doing, Jim?
I'm doing good, Nick, and you?
Not bad, not bad. I apologize for everyone for a slight delay. I think that ChatGPT or some other dark powers of electricity were not letting us go online. You know, Jim, technology is hard. You know, and streaming these days is hard. But anyhow, we're here, and thanks everyone who joined and waited for us here on the stream. I hope this will be a great episode of Accelerate.
Yeah, thanks for your patience, folks.
Okay, so since you already know what we're going to talk about, we will just go straight to it. So we're going to talk about ChatGPT and how it can answer poultry questions. And we have almighty expert here, Jim Johnston, with me. Jim, for those who not familiar with you, I don't know if there are people like that in the world, but can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your experience in poultry, what you did, what you accomplished, and why you can be an expert on this battle today?
Cool, thanks, Nick. Yeah, so I'm a poultry guy of now 48 years in the industry as of this year. So had the privilege of working in the chicken industry with genetics companies, with integrations on both the broiler and the commercial egg side. All over the world. So you know, I've seen a whole range of different ways to grow and be successful at the poultry industry. And I guess the key really is I've always had a passion for data and for creating and analyzing data and looking at how we improve performance. So I guess that passion sticks with me for the 48 years, from actually drawing nice little graphs on a wall with different colored biro pens to reflect different KPIs. To nowadays, you know, using much more powerful analytics tools really to do a lot of the hard work for us and analyzing data. So I love that. I've been working with the MTech team really for 12 years and given my passion in data and data systems, that's really where we came together. And I'm really excited about this discussion and really about artificial intelligence in general and how we can utilize that as a positive tool for the poultry industry.
Super. Thanks, Jim, for that. So, my personal experience with Jim, I always ask him questions when it comes to chickens and business, and I learned a lot. But not everyone has that luxury, so people have to ask elsewhere. And I know that many people go on internet and start asking questions. My mom is trying to diagnose herself all the time with Google, and you know how it ends up. So, but many people now asking questions. ChatGPT, it's very popular platform right now. It's an AI chatbot that will be Jim's opponent today. So, and people using ChatGPT for all kinds of things. Some creative ways, some not so much. So from writing letters, writing CVs, passing exams, helping with writing code, or building apps based on that. So yeah, it's technology is all over the place, and I think everyone heard about that.
Yeah, you're right. It's everywhere, you know, Nick, and we talk a lot about technology, don't we, on various podcasts in the past, and artificial intelligence is one of these really fast emerging technologies that the industry could utilize into the future. But does it know poultry? Does our chat GPT actually know much about poultry? I'm really curious to understand more about that aspect.
Yeah, and we're not gonna lie. We asked ChatGPT questions and we looked at the answers, but we'll discuss some of the interesting questions today. But before we proceed with that, make sure that you have access to the chat on the platform, and you can pop your questions in there, and then we will discuss those at the second part of this episode. So pop them in the chat, we'll see them, and then we'll answer as many as we can at the end of the episode. So now let's get to the chat GPT questions. So we asked it some broad questions, and we all asked it some quite specific questions, right? So, and the first question we asked was about this. So, and you can see it on the screen. So it's also typing its answer right away. So what are the signs of avian influenza in chickens? So it's quite an interesting question, and the answer it gives quite big. It's like several points in there, and but I'm not an expert and I'm not a veterinarian. But for me, Jim, it sounds like there are plenty of disease could fall into those symptoms.
Yeah, Nick, in reviewing the answers that I guess everyone can see, I mean, it's pretty symptomatic of respiratory disease, I guess, and you could go through and list these types of symptoms in many different respiratory conditions in poultry. So I guess it's going to give you a fairly high level general kind of understanding of what you should be looking for and what the symptoms would be in the birds. But it's for me too general, and that's where I think you need your veterinarian. You really do genuinely need that expertise. I mean, ChatGPT on this one is not going to help you very much in terms of real-time diagnosis of that problem, and that's where the vet and your vet needs to come in, and that's where we continue to need these professionals and the expertise. I'd also reflect on one of the last podcasts, and we were talking a bit about artificial intelligence in human health, where it's being increasingly used. And I think you had some doctor who was saying that, if you self-diagnose on Google, you get it right about 50% of the time. And maybe that's fairly similar to the answer to this question.
Yeah, but the funny thing with those answers is that we asked ChatGPT multiple times and same questions, but it always gives a slightly different answer. And in some cases, it gives a bigger answer next time you ask it. Is it learning, or is it just saying, okay, this guy needs more information? I don't know. But yeah, it seems that the questions and answers, vary from time to time. So I don't know if that's the consistency issue, or it's just the longer it learns, the more it knows. But anyhow, I think we shall proceed to the next question. So the next question was, what is needed to have a biosecure poultry farm? And this one is kind of a specific question, right? So we're asking what kind of measures should be applied to the biosecure poultry farm, but also it's quite broad, right? So let's see if it brings us any of the specific things, and you can see the answer on the screen. So what do you think about this one, Jim?
Nick, this one was really interesting. This is one that did drift a little bit over since we started doing some research. One of the big things that in the initial answer it gave us was nothing related to proximity of other farms, and where your farm was located in relation to other poultry, which is obviously a fundamental important issue to understand. I did notice though that when we tested it again, and when we ran this in the last few hours, it came up with that. So maybe it was listening to our previous dialogue or something. I don't know, but it did find that one in there, which is satisfying. The other really good thing about this was, it's not just a checklist, and it's pretty good stuff in there as a checklist of what you need to be looking at and doing and managing on the farms. But it also talks a lot about training the staff and telling them the why is this important, and creating that biosecurity culture amongst your staff and your employees, which I think is fundamentally important. And you're not going to succeed unless you have that knowledge. One of the things, a little bit of a gap for me, and I know certainly here in the UK, we've talked a lot about litter, top-up litter for farms. How do you manage that? You know, how do you take that onto a farm mid-cycle? How do you disinfect it? Where should that litter be stored on farm? Not just an issue in the UK, it's a worldwide issue. So that, to me, there was a bit of a gap there in terms of making sure that anything that goes on that farm has come from a biosecure environment and you know, has been sanitized before it gets through the gates and onto the site. So, you know, not bad. I think pretty good answer. A couple of details again, and I suppose it's just experience and knowledge that help, you know, shell that out in a bit more detail. But
yeah, so and I really like that it put controlled access on the first position there when it was answering, because you know, if you only look at one country, you can see one type of practice, right? But if you look at worldwide, you can see all kinds of different practices, from very strict control to almost no control. So that's a bit weird, you know, like, because it says, okay, you need controlled access, but you don't have that everywhere. So like I found that a bit funny, you know. It's just, I don't know if that's because, you know, it's a regional that it's looking at, or it's just like, okay, everyone needs to do that because not everyone is doing it.
no, not everyone's doing it, but I think that's positive. I mean, everybody needs to consider that very seriously. It's a fundamentally important part of trying to create, you know, a biosecure farm. You have to control the fence line, the gates, you know, and all access to the site. So that's fundamentally important. It's not universally adopted, I agree. And you see too many farms not doing that, but it is a practice people need to move towards, as particularly in that first question we talk about avian influenza. As that becomes a bigger issue, you know, you need to tighten down and get more and more controls around your biosecure poultry farm.
All right. Cool. So now let's move on to the third question. So, and this one is kind of a little bit of a curveball over here, right? So, how do I predict the growth rate of the broiler chickens? I mean, you know, the answer could be very simple, but then also ChatGPT here tries to give us both how to manage and some tools on how to predict it. So I kind of like this one, but it doesn't really tell you what to do, right? So it's just like, okay, so there is a growth rate charts. Okay, fine. I'm good with that. Everyone's using them. Then there is breed specifications. Perfect. And then there is feed conversion. Okay. And statistical models suddenly. So, I mean, first three, okay, just gives you an idea on where the growth of the chicken is, but then statistical model can suggest you where it's going. So how do you rate this one?
Yeah, this one's an interesting one. It basically, in the answer, I think everyone's looking at, it talks about modeling 3 or 4 times. You know, 3 or 4 of the bullet points are now about modeling. Out of a total of 8 bullet points or answers it gave, you know, so it obviously shows you the importance of that. It talks a little bit about test sample weights and stuff, but it doesn't really get into the detail. I mean, that's one of the headaches, isn't it? You manually sample weigh birds, and it's making sure you've got a representative sample. Is very tough to do in larger houses and things. So makes no mention, of course, of platform wares. So some technology there that might help or could help in this regard. And then fundamentally, the quality of data you're going to put into any model is critically important for the accuracy that comes out the other end. So, you know, there was a couple of key aspects there that for me were missing. The other thing I would do, and I didn't see any sign of it in the answers, was water intake. You know, one of the first things for me I'm going to look at in terms of poultry growth and would be, you know, what's the water intake been over the last 24 hours? Now, you know, again, I think that's fundamental, and it's not part of that. So, yeah, interesting answers it gave us.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can have something out of it, but it's not really like a guide. Okay, so how do I tell what will be the weight tomorrow? What will be the weight next week? What will be the weight of just okay, yeah, look at FCR or look at the statistics. Well, that's what we've been doing for years and years. But all right, so let's go to the question number 4. And this one is pretty much practical, right? So, and this here we try to test the real knowledge, because I think if you ask any chicken guy this question, they will direct you to the direction we want to go. But let's see what ChatGPT says. So my recent flock of broiler chickens has much higher 3-day mortality than the previous flock. What could be the reason? Right? And the answer again is rather broad, and it mentions the disease or infection, environmental factors, some feed or nutrition related issues, management practices, and so on. But it doesn't really mention the hatcheries, the source where the birds came from. So that's I found that's kind of interesting. So, and you know, before we go to the next question, which is a follow up to this one, so we tried to help ChatGPT to answer it. But what do you think about this? Is this a right approach for this type of issues?
Yeah, you know, I think the answers are all good. They're all things you need to have a look at for sure, from disease and levels and what's going on in terms of environmental factors, stress on these chicks and stuff, temperatures, management practices, all of that. Yes. Yeah, you're going to have a look at, because I'm a great believer in checking out what you do on the farm before you start throwing, you know, balls and pointing fingers in other directions. However, if I've got, you know, a spike in 3-day mortality, I'm definitely going to be wanting to have a look at the hatchery side and just check out chick quality and some of these issues. Now, it was interesting that when you asked that next question, you know, it got into acknowledging that that probably was an area that needed to be looked at. So I guess too, for me, it kind of teaches us when you ask that question, the way you phrase the question you ask is fundamentally important here when you're using ChatGPT to see what's going to come out as the answer. So, you know, yeah, the answers are changing to the same question over time, as we've found out. They tend to be getting more detailed, but also how you ask the question and maybe follow-up questions can drill you down a little bit closer to reality and maybe some of the real answers.
Yeah, but again, this leads me to the discussion that we might have a little bit later. That yes, you need to know what you're asking and you need to know what you're looking for. Then you will get that answer. And the way you phrase the question, the way you ask the question, same with any other system like with Google, right? So it also uses quite a lot of artificial intelligence to help get the right answers. And the way you ask is important. So you need to know how to ask the question to get to where you need to. But let's go back to the ChatGPT. So we asked it a follow-up question. Could this be somehow linked to the hatchery that provided me those chicks? And then it caught it. Okay, right. So we need to look at the hatchery because you know it's important for 3-day mortality. So that's kind of I like that. But then again, we asked this question several times on several occasions, and sometimes you know the terminology changed. So I guess it's also quite tricky to catch all the chicken terminology, even for such a beast of a machine like ChatGPT. Um, but then it's like, yeah, start saying, okay, yeah, we need to look at the hatchery management, the disease transmission, genetic quality, but then it rephrased it to breeder flock. So it corrected itself. So that's fine. And then transportation handling. So it's, it gave you the answer that you're looking for, but from based on, again, and I'm more from the data and project perspective, I can tell that many companies, they're not even considering 3-day mortality be a part of the broiler flock. They just take it out, and then everything that happens after 3 days contributes towards the total mortality of the flock. So sometimes it's like 1, 2, sometimes it's 3-day mortality is just taken out and not even considered.
Spooked against the hatchery, I guess. Huh?
Yes, yes,
But
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, the answer, ChatGPT's answer to that question on hatchery certainly started to drill down into some of the detail that you would be wanting to see for 3-day mortality issues. And again, though, the gaps, I still think there's some gaps, and maybe I'm, just over analytic and I want to see everything that's going on. But breeder flock ages, egg age, egg room storage in hatchery, egg room storage in farm, temperatures, the conditions that egg is kept in, and the hygiene, the egg hygiene effectively coming through. So it's a number of areas there that I guess probably reflect to the supply of hatching eggs into the hatchery that I would be wanted to track back, as well as just looking at, how did the machines, what was the temperature profiles, etc., and time of hatch window. It's all that detail which it alludes to here in the answers. But again, it's a general guided to the areas that you need to look at. So I suppose in that regard, it's a good kind of checklist to go through, but it doesn't necessarily give you, the end answer.
All right. So to get to the bottom line of it, right? So with all those questions, as a summary, I can say that from what I hear from you, is that it's good for the general guidance and just to give you an idea of what's, can cause something or what to do. But again, that probably all can be found all over the internet, right? So, and in the specialized books and specialized guides on how to handle farms, how to handle chickens. It just summarizes all that information nicely and gives you those tools, or gives you a starting point where you can start and dig deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. Tend to agree, Nick. I mean, it's a good guide, general guide. It's not replacing the need for professionals. It's not replacing the need for experience, and it doesn't replace the need for building of good husbandry capacity in your staff. At the end of the day, these are the key issues that are going to get you right. ChatGPT, obviously, this particular way of using artificial intelligence, although I'm sure it will improve, as we've seen over the recent days and weeks, that it does improve in terms of the answer quality and the depth of answers. But I think it's still got obviously a long way to go to be a really useful tool in itself.
Yeah, and you mentioned this, that AI will not replace a person, and now there are all kinds of talks across the social media, on the television, social networks, everywhere, about that. Okay, AI will replace people, replace jobs in marketing, replace jobs in different sectors like IT, developers. That's a scary thing. But then, like, I read an article this morning where a developer is addressing this, like, yeah, okay, so we will be able to automate some of the things, and then like those boring jobs will no longer be needed. I think it's same type of thing happened with all kinds of manufacturing. Once we got the conveyor belt in the farm, in the plants, so then, okay, we no longer need to have 50 people at the factory. So now they can be replaced with one machine, and those 50 people can do something else. So what is your take on this one? Maybe you can elaborate a little bit. So where it can help, and will it ever replace anyone in the chicken industry?
Yeah, look, I generally see this as a really strong tool for people to use to be more effective, for us to be more effective, how we plan, how we manage, how we improve performance over time in a breeder flock or a commercial layer flock or a broilers, for example. It's a tool to help support management, is the way I see it. Will it take people out in itself? I don't think so. I think for me, it will support people to do the job better, more efficiently, and importantly, make better decisions, with the data they have, and more often the right decision that will benefit the company and improve its efficiency. So I don't see it replacing people wholesale. In the poultry industry, I'm speaking specifically of, but I do see it as a very important tool that we can leverage and utilize as time goes by.
Yeah, and we talked about just Chat GPT now, right? So, and it's just like one way of using AI. So it's using algorithms to reply to your questions and build that natural reply like a human would have. But also there are all kinds of other applications for AI, and many of the success cases that we know, they are mostly linked with um, data analytics, and production. So this is where AI shines, that it can deal with large volumes of data that we now suddenly have from all the sensors, from all the different systems, and we got the supply chain connected, and it generates a lot of data. And this is where we see AI can really help to crunch those numbers and help us understand where the connections are happening, what are the correlations, and pinpoint all kinds of anomalies and trends.
Yeah, I'm really excited by the opportunity to use artificial intelligence. And if you look at MTech, I mean, MTech's data science team was established, must be 5 years ago now, and effectively using artificial intelligence tools to really improve three areas I would mention. First one being cleansing of data. I mean, if you look at data, it doesn't matter where you keep that data, whether it's a spreadsheet or whatever, it's a lot of potential errors in large data sets. And it's really an important tool to efficiently cleanse data before you utilize that information in a meaningful way. So that is a real today use of artificial intelligence. If you look at also in terms of supply chain planning, we would be using with an MTech artificial intelligence tools, machine learning tools to improve the accuracy of how we forecast breeder production, commercial egg production, broiler weights to plant. So there's a real application there. And the other key thing about these solutions is it's using your data. So, a lot of algorithms may be built in general information, general data, but using that to train the algorithms. But effectively, the most effective use of it is with your data from your business, in your situation with your houses, your people, your nutrition, etc., and the use of that data to really drive the accuracy of forecasting and planning within your own supply chains. So that's a great second way that the solution's being used today. And the third way is troubleshooting. You mentioned its ability to manage and cope with large data sets, Nick. And often, as individuals, we're trying to find out the root cause of a problem with huge amounts of data. And how do we look at that? And how can we, graphically show it? It's a tough challenge in some of these big operations with the amount of data that you've got to manage. And that's where artificial intelligence can really help us in terms of looking rapidly at different scenarios, looking at data in different ways, and really get us, and we've seen this, in a few instances over recent times where the data science team has effectively used AI in order to troubleshoot in businesses and come out with some really interesting and very successful answers to the challenge.
No, right,
So
that's
where I
really
would say it's currently being used.
yeah, that's really interesting. And again, this is completely different perspective, right? So it's not about replacing people, it's just helping people. So it's all those AI components, whether it's machine learning, deep reinforcement learning, neural networks, whatever it is, or ChatGPT is just a tool. You know, it helps us do our daily stuff quicker, better, more effective. So I think we can wrap up this section of the episode, and we have some questions from the audience, and I think it's pretty cool to look at those. So let's see. So I like this question. So can artificial intelligence models help improve accuracy in projections? I think it's pretty cool question because, and well, the ultimate answer is yes, right? But then I have two points, and I don't want to sound like a 500-year-old man, but um, you don't always need like an absolute accuracy in everywhere, right? So if we talk about like bird weights to plant projection, then yes, you need to be as accurate as possible, right? So down to 10 grams can give you an enormous results. But then when it comes, for example, egg projection on the large volume, do you need to go down to the 100 eggs over a flock? Probably not, right? But then again, what's the cost of the mistake? If we're projecting percent production and then 1% is a big deal. You know, it may sound like, oh, 1%, it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal when we talk about large operations, where 1% can contribute to millions of eggs or kilos or dollars. So, and then another point in that is that it doesn't matter what kind of planning tool you use, whether it's a simple Excel calculation, or it is a mathematical model, or it's an artificial intelligence model. If the source data is not reliable, the result will not be good. I think it's all about the source. If you get the good, reliable source of information, then you can build reliable projection. And yes, if you have a lot of that data, then artificial intelligence, if you know how to use it and you have a right model, yes, it can improve the results quite significantly.
Yeah, I think that's important. You make a good point there, Nick, in terms of accuracy of weight prediction. Broilers, particularly nowadays, where the pressure's on, fixed weight, fixed price, tight specifications from retailers, food service people, it's really, really important to get the right weight birds at the factory at the right time. And that's where I think, that cleansing that we talk, data cleansing, and then applying AI to help us predict and get accurate prediction of growth rate and weights to factory is a real opportunity for us to utilize it. So what else? What other questions? Any more questions we've got there? I've got a couple popped up here. And the question really is, can artificial intelligence positively impact the nutrition efficiency, the diets that we use, I guess, in the industry? And for me, that's a really area of opportunity. I think to be looking at how we feed our chickens, through starter, through grower, finisher, withdrawal diets, how we get the nutrient balance right. And I think there's a real opportunity to use your data in a company with larger data sets to look at how do we fine tune the nutrition to get the optimum growth rate, obviously at the cost of production that becomes competitive. And so I think there's a bit of tuning there, and I'm sure utilizing artificial intelligence into the future can can help us there, can help nutritionists, can help companies, and can help us fine-tune the right nutrition for your birds in whichever part of the world you're operating in.
That's pretty cool. And okay, so one more. Did you try to feed some figures like daily production numbers and simple calculations to the system, putting it into your question to make it build some speech about it? Well, it's a good question. I don't think we tried doing that. I tried doing something similar with other stuff, but again, you need to give it a good guidance on what you're looking for. And I think that it's the same for every model you're building. I think the model should be built to a purpose, like find a solution, or solve a problem. Like, okay, so if I have some hatchability issues or mortality issues or something like that, then I'll need to provide a big set of data and guide the model to the answer. So maybe find anomalies, find the links and things like that. But I don't think like a speech models will do analytics. It will explain what the problem is or what you're asking, maybe just give you a guidance like it did with the 3-day mortality thing, now like what to look for, but I don't think it will really help you, because I think the big thing about all of those models is they don't decide for you, right? So it is I think it's fundamental thing that they will not make a decision what to do. It will just guide you. Oh, okay, so there are like things that you can look at. But then
it's true. Ultimately,
so what do you
make
do?
a decision. Yeah. Ultimately, you need to make a decision, and I think ChatGPT is the way that we got into the whole artificial subject today, Nick. I mean, I think it was a very topical thing and allowed us to talk a bit about artificial intelligence. The thing that really excites me, however, is the opportunity to positively use AI tools to help us manage data, analyze large data sets, and then make management decisions. So the ChatGPT thing, I don't really believe that that's going to be the way of utilizing AI for the poultry industry. I think it's going to be more about the tools that allow us to crunch data quicker, allow us to improve our decision making in the industry, and that's where I would certainly get really excited about that as the opportunity to help us improve.
Yeah, at the end of the day, all those tools, whatever it is, whether it's IT technology, new equipment, new practices, new rules and regulations, they all geared towards us producing better chickens, producing more chickens, and feeding the planet.
Yep, absolutely right.
All right, I think there are some more questions that we haven't answered, but we would like to respect everyone's time. Again, apologies for a little late start. Once we wrap up this session, you will have our contacts displayed, so you'll be able to reach out to us. But we'll do more episodes of Accelerate. I hope that you enjoy those. And if you don't want to miss new episodes, please follow us on social media. We are on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and on Instagram. And of course, visit our website. Don't hesitate. Reach out to us. See what kind of new projects we can do together. And thanks everyone for joining today.
Thank you all very much. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. See you in the next episode.